Hey, welcome into another episode of Before and After Talks. It's just going to be me today, Vince, and Spencer again. Like I mentioned in the previous episode, we do go to different colleges, and he's at Joe Paterno State. Actually, it's Penn State. But he won't be joining me for a little while unless we try and find some time to work it out. Regardless, he sent in his stuff. He wrote out a little bit of a script that he wanted to get across to you guys because today I was struggling to come up with ideas on what to review, and basically at the same exact time, me and Spencer, in a group chat, we both put Dave Chappelle's new stand-up because there's been, I guess you can say, controversy about it, but that's basically Dave Chappelle's stand-up, and we're going to get into that in just a little bit. But before we get started, I just wanted to start out by saying you can follow us on Facebook at Before and After Talks, on Instagram at Before After Podcast. Apparently, Before and After Podcast or Before and After Talks already taken, so we're going to deal with that until then. But other than that, you can basically keep listening wherever you get your podcast: Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher, and etc. And the last thing I wanted to mention was to check out the schedule that we released for our upcoming episodes in September. This is one of them, and you're listening to it right now, and then we'll get into when the next episodes come out. There's going to be two more notable this month. Now, let's get into some Dave Chappelle, why don't we? So this is the before episode. We go through the hype of it, talk about what's happening with it, and then in the following episode, it is strictly going to be on Dave Chappelle's Netflix special and do a full review on that. So let's get started. Dave Chappelle's Netflix stand-up is Sticks and Stones. It came out last week, August 26th. Now, controversy is the theme in a Dave Chappelle show. And just in this one alone, even on Facebook, I was scrolling through, and he was talking about Juicy Smollett, and he was saying, Jesse Smollett's name in a weird voice and a weird tone or whatever, and he was making fun of that entire thing, and I was like, yeah, I already know where this is going, but I do like the type of comedy because they're saying things that you're thinking you just don't want to say yourselves because, again, it's controversial, and that's kind of, you get in trouble for saying things these days, and Dave Chappelle and people like him just go against it, and that's why it's so shocking and funny at the same time. And I guess you can also compare to, Bill Burr and Anthony Jeselnik, just that shocking, just go against it. And just like last night, I watched Joan Rivers. She's the exact same way, just making fun of everybody. And she says, just don't take it too hard because it's a joke. So I think you need to take that mentality from Joan Rivers and bring that to the Dave Chappelle Sticks and Stones Netflix special. Now, he also has a handful of specials on Netflix right now, and of course he's had an illustrious past and has done so much, but I just wanted to get into Spencer's thoughts. So as I pull that up right now, he did leave a nice little email, so I'm just going to go ahead and read it verbatim, and quote, "While it currently holds a 38% on Rotten Tomatoes, there was a time where several people thought this was going to stay at 0%. Now, I tried to look up other examples of things that hold that coveted 0% and found a literal goldmine of absolutely horrible movies. However, I couldn't find an example of any comedy specials that hold a 0%, which makes me wonder, what are we about to watch? I understand that with comedy, not everyone will understand or find every joke funny, but everyone at the time hated it. I've never seen that. Now, as hard as it is, I absolutely refuse to read a full review until I can see this and judge for myself. I do, however, know some of the topics discussed. Dave Chappelle has had an amazing career in comedy, but he has never been described as being guarded, safe, or even shy. In today's society, there are topics where it would be considered taboo to make a joke about. Spend 5 minutes at Thanksgiving with your old family members and you know exactly what I'm talking about. For a comedian, this can be a very dangerous time, and it is evident that Dave won't hold anything back. He's always had a comedic style that, while funny, raised several questions and was thought-provoking. My only hope is that this is not without meaning." So, end quote there. Spencer, thank you very much for sending that in. And he sent in a couple other topics that we'll get to later in the show. But yeah, Dave Chappelle's Sticks and Stones special was at 0% on Rotten Tomatoes. And as he mentioned in the beginning, it did raise to 38. So it's just shocking that it had 0%. So that alone really hooked me on wanting to review this. And I can't wait for this weekend so I can sit down and actually see what he talks about. Now, that's going to be the before on Dave Chappelle's Netflix stand-up Sticks and Stones. Like I mentioned, we do the before now, and then the next episode, which will be coming out, I believe, September 13th, it's going to be the full after review of Dave Chappelle's stand-up. But one more thing that I wanted to get on before we take a quick break is that Bill Burr's Paper Tiger special comes out on Netflix on September 10th, and he filmed it, I think, in the Royal Albert Theater. Albert something theater, a big theater, and he was in it. He crushed it, and just the things I'm seeing on Facebook already, just his promotions, it's funny. And just like Dave Chappelle, he talks about things that are very edgy and very controversial. So if you're a fan of that sort of thing, you have Dave Chappelle's special out now, and by the time you hear this, it's just a couple more days until you get to hear Bill Burr do the same thing. We're going to take a quick break and get back with some video game news. It's Gears of War 5 and Cyberpunk 2077. All right, it's time for some video game news. Just a couple of things, but I thought that they were pretty awesome. We've been watching it for a while and keeping track of it, but Gears of War 5, the release date is technically yesterday. It's September 5th. For Game Pass or pre-orders, you get it early. But the actual game, the regular edition, comes out September 10th. But the big thing, not only is Gears of War 5 something we're probably going to have to review one of these days, it's one of the most beautiful Gears of War. Just has a great story and it really hooks you in. And of course, Marcus is in it. Now, the other thing that's really bringing it up right now is that Dave Batista, have you heard of him? From WWE or as Drax from Guardians of the Galaxy? Well, he, not only is he badass, but he's also going to be a character that you can play as in Gears of War 5. He's already sent out 2 videos on social media of him just looking, open up the crate and seeing the suit or trying it on, just saying that's his shit and stuff like that. So he's super excited for it, and he looks and plays the part very well. Well, WWE has their Clash of Champions pay-per-view Sunday the 15th. And right after that, once that's done, they're going to be releasing his character out. So I'm assuming a lot of people are going to be staying up after that, even if you are watching. But regardless, he's going to be someone you want to play with. And the last thing on Gears of War 5, because, it's not even out yet and there's a ton of hype, but you can still buy the Xbox One X Gears 5 limited edition bundle. It's basically all white and has the gears in gray. It looks really, really cool. Now, Cyberpunk 2077, there's just a bunch of great video games coming out right now, but we've talked about Cyberpunk in the first After Hours. Billy and I talked about this extensively, and just even off air and stuff like that. We are super hyped, and you can watch hours of gameplay already, so I think that's the coolest part. But it's, notorious and has been presented as strictly a single-player game, and I think that's much different than what we've seen on Xbox, going towards a multiplayer aspect. But the single-player campaign is going to be releasing April 2020. But recently, CD Projekt Red announced that a multiplayer platform will be in the works and released post-launch of the game. They said their plan is to release the regular game, the single-player, in April 2020. Then they're going to follow it up with free DLCs. They emphasize the free on that one, and that's something we don't see a lot of today. And they're also going to be, adding cosmetics, single-player content. They listed it as, but you can kind of guess what they're going with from there. But then they will be working on the multiplayer and introduce that later on. And if you've seen gameplay at all, the multiplayer, oh my God, is going to be just incredible. It's another game where you can do whatever you want. We recently did an episode reviewing Red Dead Redemption 2 that I believe was episode 12. Now, in there, I said over and over again, you can do whatever you want. And that's probably why the game is so successful. And Rockstar Games, making that, GTA, stuff like that. When you have that much freedom, there's going to be a lot of popularity around it. One last video game thing that I found, and I think you're going to enjoy. So Nintendo Switch, I've been dying to get one. I played a friend of mine's, and I just love it. I miss my DS and everything, and my DS, I had it as a kid. I played it nonstop, always playing Pokemon or something else, and I gave it to my brother for 1 week, and I never got my DS back. So at the time, I thought he left it in the car that my parents traded in. So I thought, yep, that's gone forever. Fast forward 8 years, I find it in our basement, fully charged still. So for 8 years, I was hating on my brother, always saying, hey, you lost my DS. There's a reason I don't have it. Anyways, I have it now, but regardless, I want the Nintendo Switch, and there's the Nintendo Switch Lite coming out. I found an article. They said, you've been asking for it since 2016, but Nintendo just announced that a range of Super Nintendo titles will be made available for Nintendo Switch Online. So I'm going to go read through. There's a few here. So let me just read through these, and if you remember any of them, just know that you can get them available. Well, by the time this episode releases, it will be available on Nintendo Switch Online. So Brawl Brothers, Demon's Crest, Joe and Mac 2, Lost in the Tropics, Kirby's Dream Land 3, Star Fox, Super EDF Earth Defense Force, Super Tennis, Super Mario World, Yoshi's Island, Breath of Fire, Kirby's Dream Course, Pilot Wings, Super Ghouls and Ghosts, Super Mario World, Super Soccer, and The Legend of Zelda: A Link to the Past. So some fun stuff there, and plenty of more games. They continue to add a bunch of stuff to the Nintendo Switch, just like The Witcher 3. So they're adding some big games, and Overwatch is another one. But just some big games. They might have to dumb down the graphics a little bit, but I'm excited to see where they go forward with Nintendo Switch. Anyways, we're going to take a quick break, and then we're going to get into some movie news before we wrap up this episode of the Before for Dave Chappelle's Sticks and Stones special. Anchor FM, what can I say? See, I started this podcast for fun with Spencer, and it has taught me so much. There's so much that goes into podcasting that it would hurt your head and your wallet. But it's also turned into a more serious hobby for me. See, when you have a podcast, you need a podcast host. No, not like me. You need a host site that holds your podcast and then ships it out to every other platform. See, go ahead and Google search podcast host websites. See, I'll give you a minute. There's probably going to be an overwhelming amount, which there is, and I was overwhelmed when I first started out. I started on one, and it asked me to pay after a few weeks. Luckily, my friend Sarah, who runs a health and fitness podcast called Sarah List, also hosted on Anchor. She turned me towards Anchor. She said it was the easiest platform to use, and it is completely free, and I agree with that. There's no hidden fees, no nothing. See, it has everything you need to record and edit. You don't need to go buy any other products to do so. It can also be done from your phone or computer, and that's the best part because I always have either my phone or my computer on me. They have podcasts of their own, and they are geared towards helping you and giving you ideas. I listen to them a lot to learn how to get this podcast out there and how to record different types of things and how to just edit in general. See, like I mentioned earlier, though, Anchor FM does all the work for you. You post your episode on Anchor, and they send it out to any other platform that you want. See, Before and After Talks is currently on 10 different platforms, and making money is the last thing I wanted to mention. You don't have to wait for sponsors to come out and find you when you get enough listeners. See, Anchor goes out and brings the sponsors to you. They match you up and get you paid. Simple as that. If you're serious about podcasting or just starting out, just take the free road by heading over to anchor.fm. That's ANCHOR.FM and downloading from the App Store. All right, if you stuck with us this far, you've already heard the Before on Dave Chappelle's Netflix stand-up Sticks and Stones. Bill Burr releasing a new stand-up special called Paper Tiger. We've gone through Gears of War 5 and Cyberpunk 2077. Now we're getting into some movies. So Netflix, they're basically in every Before episode of ours. Netflix is just huge if you've ever heard of them. But since, new rivals coming out, Apple TV Plus probably is the one that instigated this, but Netflix is trying to go back to old TV formats. And what I mean by that is they're practicing, or they're testing out, better term, they're testing out releasing weekly shows again instead of all at once. So your Stranger Things, the new season would come out and you'd watch it all in one day. Well, they're trying weekly. I used to do that with Dexter when it was live on live TV. I hated waiting that whole week just to the next Sunday or whatever it was. Oh, man. But Thankfully, they're only doing it with a couple of shows right now. Again, like I said, it's just a test. But the Great British Baking Show will be one of the shows and the main shows that will be released weekly. That is okay. See, the only thing bad about that show is everyone's teeth. They've never gone to the dentist, it seems like, and the Great British Baking Show, it's just, everything else is good. So might as well watch that. And it's a weekly thing. There's already a ton of episodes out right now. And the other one, it looked like, is Rhythm and Flow. I don't know if that's new or old, but it's a rap competition, and it's going to be released weekly, if I read that right. Now, the next thing, Apple TV, I just mentioned, but they already canceled one of their shows already, and they're not even out yet, which is a problem. Now, you're probably thinking, that's probably not good for them, and there's probably going to be more canceled shows coming up for them. I don't think so. And here's probably why they ended up canceling that show. So Richard Gere, if you've ever heard of him, he made the show Bastards, which follows two Vietnam veterans basically through a shooting spree. You're probably thinking, yeah, with everything going on, that would have just been the best show to put out there. So just more shooting spree stuff, more shooting spree shows. Yeah, that's not impressionable or anything relating to the times. So they dropped that show, and they said the two sides couldn't agree on the dark tone. Yeah, no kidding. But it's two Vietnam veterans, and he was probably supposed to play one of them, I believe he said. And they already have written a couple scripts, but then, dropped them after the scripts were made. But the two veterans, they're much older now, and both of their wives get killed in a hit-and-run accident. And this brings up a lot of rage from the war, just towards millennials, and just a lot of the secrets and everything. Probably like Dead to Me with Christina Applegate, her new show. There's a hit and run in there, and she a lot of rage in that one. Just the secrets alone on like who would do this and who did this. So that's probably why. But again, Richard Gere made the show for two Vietnam veterans on a shooting spree. Probably not the best thing to show to Apple TV, but they're done, and he's going to be presenting his show to other platforms, hopefully, if you're still into that. It is a drama, so again, it is a dark show. A dark tone is what they couldn't agree over. Now, the final thing that we are going to get into, we've mentioned it before in previous episodes, especially when Spencer was here, but if you didn't know, Robert Pattinson, yes, Team Edward from Twilight. Looking at him, did you ever think he would have played Batman? But he's going to be the next Batman. So kind of weird, kind of funny. He tried on the Batman suit for the first couple times, and he said it was really weird having people squeeze him into a Batman suit. But once he was in it, he said he felt transformed. He said you feel very powerful immediately, and he also says he feels strong and tough. Now, I don't know if Adam West felt that way back in the day, but we'll go with it, Team Edward. I don't know if he'll pull out, the spider monkey stuff from the first Twilight. I don't know, but he looks kind of like the part. If you've seen pictures of him now, just he has that strong jaw, first of all, and that's exactly what you need to be Batman. That's like step one. That was the Christian Bale as well. So it might work out for him. Now, that's going to do it for this episode of Before and After Talks. But before we wrap up, I wanted to introduce something new, something fresh, and something cool that Billy, our YouTube guy, has been working on. You've heard him in Before and After Hours. You've heard him in the 10th episode Vacation Special to South Carolina. But he's been working hard, and I've been helping him along the way. We are making a YouTube, and we have our first episode on there right now. We're in the process of getting all of our episodes and animating it in a way and putting it out there. So right now you can go on YouTube and follow Before and After Talks. Go ahead and hit that subscribe button, and you can start watching or listening to our podcast on there. It's going to be a lot of fun. And again, once it gets all the pieces together, uploading it wouldn't be an issue. But also check out on our Facebook and Instagram pages, you can check out a schedule that we released that I mentioned in the beginning of the show. Now, looking at that schedule, we have this episode that came out September 6th. That's before Dave Chappelle's Sticks and Stones Netflix special. Now, next Friday, The September 13th is the full after review on it. And then on the 20th of September is the second edition of After Hours with a former manager of mine from Jewel. Now, not a lot of people get to interview former managers of theirs. So I was pretty fortunate, but he's just a funny guy, and Billy was there as well. It was a great full episode, and that'll be coming out on the 20th. That's the last thing I wanted to catch you up on, and just like I said before, go ahead and over to YouTube and follow Before and After Talks. That's going to do it. I'm Vince, and I'll see you next time.